So what do I do with all of these scales? Major Pentatonic Scale Edition. Now, if you watch the video I did on the major scale and the kind of pitfalls that people fall into with that, it's really the same thing with Major Pentatonic Scale. We get, as guitar players, we learn the shape, get the coordination down, and we fall into the trap of just going through over and over and over again. So I want to share some things with you today that will help you break out of just the shape going up and down it, and give you some tools to make more melodies and better solos. And really it all starts with knowing what chord you're playing over and knowing when to choose when you want to use a major pentatonic scale. So I have a G major programmed into my looper here, and that's all just a static major chord. And that's the first kind of instance where it's really good to use a major pentatonic scale. And it's super simple choice to play over that scale, to play over that chord. But the idea here that you're gonna want to do and develop is, instead of just learning all 5 major pentatonic scale shapes, try to learn some really, I hate to say cliche, but I want standard, very staple major pentatonic scale licks. So for example, instead of just running up and down the scale, you could do something like this. And I'm gonna be in the key of G major the entire time for this video, just so you know. But having a lick like that ready to go over just a major chord that you're playing over, something like this. Can really help you kind of pull your solos together and get creative with them. Now, for each of the 5 major pentatonic scale shapes, there are certain cliche or standard licks that go with each one of them. Like that one that I just played is one for the regular open box shape that you think about first when you think about major pentatonics. So that's another one that's that I think about that shape. So having just a couple of those to build your solos on, and then just letting your ear guide you through whatever you think sounds good instead of just running up and down the scale, is kind of ground zero for where you want to start. And this works with a major pentatonic scale not only over just static major chord grooves, but also over very simple diatonic chord changes. And when I say diatonic, just chords that occur naturally in a given key. So let's see. Let me put in here a G major to a D major. So we're playing the 1 chord and the 5 chord in the key of G. And here's how that'll sound. So a major pentatonic scale can cover multiple chords when you're talking about one major key. And I did something there that kind of leads me to my next tip for you to kind of get out of just going up and down the scale. And that's something called scale sequencing. We talked a little bit about this with a major scale, but probably one of the most common scale sequences. And if you like classic rock, blues, or pop, this one's used a lot in there. And it's just sequencing in 3s or groups of 3, something like this. So that's a little device you can use in between your licks to kind of round out a solo, or give your solo a climax where you have a flurry of notes that are a little bit faster and a little more intense. So if you have that is a little device that will really help you make your solos more interesting. And if you want to get started with this, all you have to do is just play the first 3 notes of this major pentatonic scale. Maybe start from the bottom, and then start on the 2nd note of the scale, play 3 more notes. Then the next note, 3 more notes. Next scale, 3 more notes. And all the way through the scale. And that'll get you through a lot of really cool things. And if you ever listen to the Allman Brothers, they use a lot of ideas like this. So classic rock, country, it's used all over the place in ideas like that. And I'm gonna put another chord progression here just to give you another idea of what kind of chord progressions you can use the major pentatonic scale over. And really, again, that's what it comes all down to, is identifying a chord progression that will be good for a major pentatonic scale, and if that's the sound you want, the major pentatonic sound. So the progression I'm gonna play is very classic rocky, very blues rocky. All it is a flat major 7 or an F chord to a C the 4 chord in the key of G, and then back to the root G. And so you're gonna hear progressions like this all the time in those types of music. So something like this, let's see. So I kind of got away from the one major pentatonic scale that we've been using, and I got into 2 other shapes, and I kind of got ahead of myself there, but I wanted to show you that you can use other kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, those kind of naturally occurring cliche licks for other pentatonic scale shapes. So for this one, major pentatonic scale, using what most people would consider to be like the normal minor pentatonic scale shape, but starting on this G note with your pinky instead of the E note here on the 12th fret. So one of the cliche or like staple licks for this one is this right here from major pentatonic sound. And this one is very country, very Rolling Stones, very classic rock, and this one get used all the time. Something like that. And similarly with this shape right here, you have that same kind of idea. So those 2 licks, and then something are 3 really good spots to start with just those 3 major pentatonic scale shapes, getting those kind of staple licks down, building things around there, and then using devices like sequencing to make your solos more interesting. But overall, I would say the most important part is to just let your ear be your guide instead of going through and playing just the scale shape up and down like I'm going to do at the beginning of this. Then you can just start to let your ear guide you more for what sounds good over chord changes like this. Major, mostly diatonic chord changes, but in this case we have that F here. But the major pentatonic scale can cover a multitude of sins when you're doing something like this. So instead of doing this, and all of a sudden you sound like you're playing a classic rock solo or some kind of blues rock solo instead of just running up and down a major pentatonic scale. Now the last little area I wanted to give you that's really common to use a major pentatonic scale is just a standard 12-bar blues. And all you have to do for this is instead of, like say you're in G blues and you're playing, instead of playing a blues scale or a minor pentatonic scale like that, this standard G minor. What I would recommend doing is every now and then just toggle back and forth between from a G minor pentatonic to a G major pentatonic. It gives you a completely different sound that you can sprinkle in. It's super useful, and this is how a lot of the great blues players get a different sound other than just the minor pentatonic. So instead of very different sound, but it sounds like it belongs in the blues. So let me program in a little loop here of a 12-bar blues in G, and I'll give you an example. Change to major pentatonic. It's back to the blues or minor pentatonic. Back to major. but it gives you a completely different flavor to mess with when you're playing the blues. But one thing you have to remember about this is if you're going to use major pentatonic over the chord changes in the blues, be sure to change with the chord that's happening. So if your one chord is playing, G major is playing, play a G major pentatonic. But if you go to the 4 chord, the C chord, you have to change major pentatonic scale. So you might want to go up to this C major pentatonic. I'll give you an example of that too. Come C major. Then back to minor. So you go to the 5 chord D. Major pentatonic, C major pentatonic, and back to blues. So those are some really great ways that you can use the major pentatonic scale and just go, instead of just going up and down the scale. And you're gonna get out of this whatever you put into it. I have a lot of work I need to do with using the major pentatonic scale to its full capacity, but the really big things are being creative with your melodies, not just going up and down the scale, really thinking about what chord progressions you're playing over, and then getting creative with things like sequencing and learning some licks for each one of the 5 major pentatonic scale shapes that you can go to that are really staples for you. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think, or I don't know how you're going to communicate some of your favorite major pentatonic licks. Maybe you can just type, I like this lick from the Rolling Stones, or I like this lick from the Allman Brothers that's major pentatonic. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you later.